In the Azores, where traditional stone buildings dot the dramatic volcanic landscape and centuries of architectural heritage are woven into the fabric of each island, we were presented with an unusual starting point, a solitary chimney and bread oven standing alone on a sloping hillside. It turns out to be the last remaining element of what was once someone's home, but with the house long since gone, it now sits alone in the garden of this viewer. When the owner first approached us about incorporating this chimney into a new tiny house, it quickly became clear that this wasn't going to be a straightforward addition. The chimney itself is protected, and its distinctive form with its characteristic blue band speaks to the architectural heritage of the region, embodying generations of local building traditions. But more than that, it holds this prominent position in a garden that sweeps down the hillside, offering spectacular views across the island's dramatic topography that any new building would need to carefully preserve and celebrate. The challenge we faced was an interesting one of balance, requiring us to navigate between preservation and innovation. Simply wrapping a house around the chimney would not only block the views of the house behind, but would also diminish the impact of this beautiful historic element, effectively reducing it to just another part of a larger whole. So instead, we started thinking about how we might create something that would be subservient to the chimney rather than absorb it, allowing its historic significance to shine through in a contemporary context. We knew that any new building around it would have to be started again from scratch, and this hard standing would have to be broken up and removed. So we saw that as an opportunity to use the steep level change of the hillside to our advantage in both integrating a new structure with the landscape and preserving the chimney as the dominant form. Taking this approach lent itself to the idea that the chimney should be left to stand alone as it is, and that any new elements could kind of cluster around it like a family of smaller buildings gathered around a central figure. So to maintain the discrete profile that the site demanded, we knew we needed to work with the landscape rather than against it, following the natural contours of the hillside. Taking our cue from the blue band that wraps around the chimney, we used this as a datum line to inform the height of the highest building in our stepped arrangement. This creates a visual dialogue between the old and the new. But sunken into the hillside, we wanted to keep this form as clean and simple as possible, allowing the historic chimney to remain the focal point. This white rendered finish is traditional to the area, as is the blue banding. So this lent itself really well to a modernist interpretation while remaining rooted in local building traditions. Using a single long window at this highest point creates a discreet but expansive glazing and brings in the floating nature of modernist architecture. It breaks this up from being just a single solid mass while also serving the practical purpose of creating privacy between the main house and this new tiny house. From the roadside, the end of this long modernist element would be the only significant mass visible in relation to the chimney, and it picks up the geometry of the chimney base to echo it. We were conscious that given the heritage status of the chimney and the rich architectural character of this island, the view from the roadside of any new construction around this chimney should be minimal and non-invasive, respecting the historical significance of the site. So you would have a continuation of the horizontal blue band, the white geometric box base, and then this meadow planting on top and around to really integrate this with the cascading garden, allowing the building to become part of the landscape itself. And just to help that process of integration, we picked up the curve of the oven wall in some of the landscaping around this area that would step down the hillside in these small terraces. The traditional architecture of this region has small windows, a vernacular style that has evolved over centuries to suit both the climate and culture of the Azores. So again, any glazing viewed from this roadside is carefully shielded to diminish its size and therefore impact, maintaining the traditional architectural rhythm of the area. Around the other side, you can start to see how you approach the building. The steps that take you down the slope lead you past this stepped building structure, which continues the geometric language of the chimney, as well as the terracing of the garden, creating a journey through the space that reveals itself gradually. And then it's at the bottom where things open up and you have a larger outlook and opening, which can take in the views while being discreet from the neighbouring surroundings. That balances the desire for connection with the landscape against the need for privacy. So if I show this to you from overhead, you can start to see this concept of the cluster of forms surrounding the chimney, being subservient to it so as not to compete with it. So picking up the language of it to maintain that cohesion, there's the geometry of the white boxes, but then also the bright blue of this plunge pool, reinterpreting the palette of the site and bringing a contemporary touch to the traditional colour scheme. I'll take you around the building now so you can experience how it feels to move through it. You enter from the stairs at this point and come into a kitchen space that's lit by the long horizontal window that's level with the garden above. You can hang your coat on the hook over here and work at the kitchen worktop while looking out across the garden, but without invading the privacy of the house up the hill, maintaining that careful balance between openness and discretion. On the other side, you get to enjoy this glazed opening that takes you out into a small courtyard with a dining table next to the chimney, which can carry on being used as an oven for outdoor cooking and eating. With the lowered rooftops of the cluster of buildings, you get to pick up more of the views by being able to see over the top of them. And it also brings the language of the blue banding down to eye level to visually pull the cluster together, creating a cohesive architectural composition. Inside, you go through the sliding door off the kitchen and come into the sleeping quarters, where the design continues to prioritize both privacy and connection to the landscape. So that horizontal glazing carries on into a small shower room. And you have your wardrobe and clothes storage on your way to the bedroom. Which also takes in the garden through another carefully positioned opening. Across the courtyard and past the chimney, you have a plunge pool from which you can enjoy those incredible views. Back inside, we head down the steps and into your living room, where you get to enjoy the views again across the garden with these glazed openings. Going out onto another small terrace and on into the garden, you can move back through this whole space and navigate it in a way that's kind of reminiscent of small alleys and streets in traditional Azorean towns, where buildings have grown organically over time to create intimate spaces and unexpected viewpoint. That effect again just diminishes the scale of these volumes to keep them in proportion to the chimney and ensure it remains the dominant feature, while creating an architectural experience that's both contemporary and deeply rooted in the local context. If you're planning a project and would like my help with your designs, I offer very affordable consultations, or of course I can work with you to reimagine your existing building from scratch in a full concept design like this one. See you next time.